The driver of growth is launching new products. But what is potentially the killer of growth? Launching too many new products because it kills all of your cash flow.
You're trying to compete with like those other guys and you're kind of pricing it down, and all of a sudden you're just kind of taking your margins away. I don't even look at a competitor. I price it based on what I need to make money on.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Free to Go CFO podcast, where we dive deep into conversations about scaling a profitable D2C brand. I'm your host, John Blair, founder of Free to Go CFO. We are the go-to outsourced finance and accounting firm for 8- and 9-figure D2C brands. All right, we're back, and I am here with my homie, Luis Fonseca. Luis, what's up, man?
How's it going?
So, Luis, I don't even know how to introduce you, man, because you've had your hands in so many different things. I mean, obviously, friend, client, co-founder of T1A, Vander studio. You have other businesses and have had other businesses, but I guess I'll stop there. Thanks for joining, man. I'm really excited about our chat today. You know, we'll see where the conversation takes us. We're definitely going to talk about Amazon, definitely going to talk about e-commerce marketplaces, might talk a little bit about having 3 kids and your faith, talk about bringing on a fractional CFO, maybe a little bit about making mistakes and how you've recovered from those mistakes. But before we dive into any of that stuff, can you give the audience just a little background of who you are and where you came from?
Yeah, I mean, very short of it. I came as a immigrant. I came from Brazil. My parents moved here when I was 14 and just went to high school, normal things, got into sports, played football for MSU, ended up getting injured, and then just went into the career path, right? And I was going towards corporate world, UPS, and business development. And one of my customers snatched me up, to run the operations at a COO for an automotive company. And a few months later, it didn't really work out. And then I decided to just kind of branch out on my own. That was kind of the real short version. But in between there, I went to college for biblical studies, and so there's a lot that I've done. But once I kind of went on my own, I never looked back. Just I was always thinking with things on the side on Amazon and e-commerce. And then once that one opportunity kind of the door closed, I said, I'm doing this because I wasn't getting any younger and I already had 2 kids. And I said, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it.
Man, okay, so like we won't camp on this, but you just glazed over playing D1 football at MSU. I want to be clear, that's Michigan State University, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, no slouch. That's Division I Big Ten football. But that being said, I don't know what it was back then in terms of the comp. Were they in the Big Ten back then?
Well, you're in the Big Ten, yeah.
Okay. Well, so let's talk about getting into e-commerce. Take us back to the beginning, because if I'm not mistaken, you tell me if I'm wrong, I think are you a founding member of MDS?
I'm not a founding. Alex was my business partner, was a founding member.
Who was on a few weeks ago, yeah. So, but you're in MDS, right? How did you get into e-com, get into the MDS crew, get on Amazon? Like, tell us that story.
So funny, like, I always try to do something online, right? Like, so as far back I can remember, probably like in 2011, I was buying and reselling stuff from just like arbitraging. I used to go like Home Depot, Walmart, I'm like going out, loading my car with stuff, coming home, packaging, just sending stuff out, right? Like,
So awesome.
And I did that for a few months, and it was fine. And then I end up buying like almost like not mystery boxes, but like return boxes and then reselling on eBay. And that was a lot of work, profitable.
Yeah.
You're sorting through what's open boxes, what's not, taking pictures. So that was kind of how I began doing online stuff. And you make good money on the side. You're doing this at nighttime after you come home from work, and, you're just kind of hustling. And then my cousin in Brazil kind of reached out. He says, hey, I know this guy that has this company in Brazil that has invented this new, nail polish thing for women. I said, it sounds interesting. And we started talking. It's like, well, let's bring it. I'll try it. It was my first private label product that I tried, was this nail polish thing, right? And again, didn't know the market, didn't know private label, didn't know anything. I said, but I said, we'll figure it out. We brought it to market, was super cheap. So, as far as like the cogs are bringing it in, what I did not realize at the time that, now I know, is like it was new to the market in the US. Nobody knew how to use it. So like, because people don't know how to use it, it was just it was gonna fail, but I didn't know. I was like, oh, but what he did is like I learned Amazon, right? I learned private label. I learned how the Seller Central works and how to send stuff in, how to brand it, how to trademark, all that little stuff. But it was epic fail because you had to teach the people on how to apply that thing. And if you applied it wrong, it was a
Yeah.
disaster. So it wasn't too bad. I paid off my cousin, paid off like the people that was partners with me at the time. And I was like, I took the losses, and I was like, it was, chucked it out to like learn how to do it. So that was my first private label thing. And I was like, okay, then I was already kind of hooked. Right. And then my second private label was like this battery packs, like the cell phone battery packs that, like it's very common, but I was early into this and I found a supplier and I was like, all right, let's do this. And uh it kind of just took off. Like, like this battery, like the one model that I had took off. And then I had
How big did you scale it and how fast?
it really, like, for me at the time was huge. It was
Yeah.
nothing now. Like it was just
Yeah.
like I think we were selling like 20 to 40,000 a month in that first one, but it was like the first badge. Like it was,
Totally.
so we're
Yeah.
like, oh my word, this is gonna blow up. And we got so excited. It was like, okay, let's go ahead and like, get the second and third different kind. Well, the problem is like, again, it's like this learning curve, like because this one kind of took off doesn't mean that number two and three are going to take off the same way. And again, he didn't know the nuances, right? I wasn't like, crazy on optimization and I wasn't crazy. Like, it was just kind of like, we threw it out there. I got some good images that I kind of figure I did all the images myself. I'm like into Photoshop and Illustrator and like I'm doing everything myself. And then the second and third one was just slow selling. And I have all this inventory that I made money in this one and I put in this one and ended up in just, again, I finally pulled the plug on it. I says, okay, this is not going to work. So that was a lesson. But again, you're starting to figure out like this works, this does not work. And
Totally.
then you would start figuring out, I was like, okay, because this one worked doesn't mean that this number B is going to work. We have to really kind of think of the product and why is the consumer buying this one versus this one, and then the price point. Like, so like, it was just so many little lessons that you learn in those little failures.
Totally.
And then that's during that gap that I did the battery pack. And then I did some other solar because it was like I had a solar power battery pack, and then I had like a solar panel that you can plug in just a cord and charge your phone. And it was sort of gimmicky because I mean, think about it. This is in 2015 or 16. There really wasn't that good of a product back then. Like the solar panels
Yeah.
now are really, really good.
For
So
sure.
like you barely charge your phone, right? So like it didn't really work, So like we learned that, obviously you can have a beautiful image and everything else, but if your product is not good, it's just gonna fail. Like, you gotta get negative reviews. But that's
So
what
what was the first is then I'm curious, like what was the first product or brand or that like you felt like like it nailed it in terms of like you're finally starting to figure out profitability and scale?
oh, that was kind of the gap, right? So I took the lumps from this one. I went to manage that company as a CEO. And this is like, again, this is a big company. Like, I had 300 employees under me and we're doing $200+ million a year. And then that was kind of like, the leadership and I didn't kind of see eye to eye. So we kind of parted apart, like we separated. And then I said, I'm going to do this. And then at that time, I had called a guy that had done e-commerce and exited, for multiples of millions. And then he kind of guided me through the couple of ventures that I had. And I say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, full time. What is your thoughts? And then he was like, hey, you should do it. If otherwise, you're never going to do it. Right. And then I kind of sat on it for another week and I called him back. I was like, I want to do it, but I can't. Do you want to go together? Right. Like, it was kind of like, it was a scary thing. I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
two kids and uh, I had to be able to provide. And he was about probably 2.5 years retired, because he sold it at the age of 40,
Yeah.
42, whatever it is he was. And he was getting bored. So it's like, yeah, I'll go with you. And what we did is like we did specialty gift baskets.
Mm,
And that's kind of when we actually made it. So we curated the baskets. So it was quasi private label, but not really because we are using other people's products, but we curated the experience, right?
got it.
We designed the bags that you went in. So we had two brands. One was a box, one was a bag, and the bag was a burlap with the design and had sayings in it. We had mugs and, with particular sayings. So we had a coffee bag, we had a dad's Father's Day gift basket with beef jerky, and then and what we did is we created multiple brands of the beef jerky, so that way we're getting a full spicy one. So we had 15 different kinds and different brands of spicy ones. We did Halloween basket, like Easter, so we kind of did all this curated things, and we kind of in less than 2 years, I think when I exited and I sold my shares to him, we did a little over $4 million on the second year. So we went from year one to year two, and we did a little over 4 million, and I kind of sold my shares to him, and I come into T1A.
Do you want to use debt to scale your D2C brand, but you don't know where to start? And to make matters worse, are you overwhelmed by all the options? Shopify Capital, Wayflyer, ABLs, SBA loans. How do you actually know which one is right for your business? Don't worry, we've got you covered. At Free to Grow CFO, we've helped nearly 100 fast-growing D2C brands, and we've raised tens of millions of dollars in debt capital along the way. And based on all this experience, we've created a helpful resource just for you, our D2C Debt Playbook. It's a debt playbook that'll help D2C operators like you make well-informed decisions about bringing in the right debt at the right time. Grab it for free at freetogrowcfo.com/debt or the link in the show notes. Okay, so coming to T1A, right?
Yeah.
With the lessons that you learned from those previous ventures, both like failures and success, when you came into T1A, what was it that you were like, this is going to work and this is how we're going to hit profitability and scale? And you knew at least in part that it was going to work because of the wisdom you have from your previous ventures.
So a couple things, right? So first, the product had to be quality, right? So I had good images. The product looked good, but if the product is junk, you're gonna get negative reviews because it's gonna break or whatever. So
Yeah.
and reviews, as you know, is king, and the game is different, right? We can't get new reviews like we used to be able back in the day in Amazon. So the product has to be good. The second thing that partnership taught me that was a big deal that I still take to this day is I never want to have one SKU doing multiples and multiples and multiples of $1 million. I just for me, and I will tell you why. And even the lesson carried to T1A to a few years, I want to say last year, no, 2024, I think. So that was one of the big lessons I learned. It's I'd rather have good SKUs that are doing solid sales and kind of just spread the wealth. It's you never know what's going to happen. Amazon may pull a listing down, or you may have quality issues, or your supplier may and if you hear a skill goes down, and that's basically 80% of your revenue, if you have people your employees and everything else, you're just done.
Yeah.
Right. So that was one thing that I took away. So it was the quality of it, customer service, and then kind of spreading the wealth, and as far as the SKU counts, and the motto is kind of go a little bit wider, not kind of just focus on one or two. But those are kind of the mottos that I live by,
Yeah, it's interesting because what you're talking about, what I call from the finance perspective is concentration risk, right? There's different concentration risks where you have various aspects of a business that may be over concentrated or over reliant on a specific area. And it ends up potentially being a single point of failure, right? And that single point of failure, when I first started Free to Grow CFO 4 years ago, one of my first clients, they were a brand that in 1 year, when I served them as CFO, we took the brand from 1.8 million in revenue to 35 million in a single year. And everyone was like, we're going to the moon. We're going to 100 million, right? Because everyone was high on just the growth and how much profit we were generating. But we learned big time the next year about the single point of failure because it was a single SKU brand, right? And also mostly single channel Meta ads. And their account got banned on Meta for 2 weeks. And the business still exists today, but they're about half the size in terms of revenue, and they've never fully recovered from a profitability standpoint. There's a lot of things that I learned about that in that whole experience, but one of the big ones was what you're talking about: concentration risk, single point of failure. And they had two. They had an ad channel concentration and a SKU catalog concentration, and it nearly killed the business. I'm not joking. Overnight, it was crazy.
Well, I've seen it happen, and so, but the one more thing that I meant to say and didn't say it, and I still get caught up, not as much now, that I used to, but like I did it even with T1A in the beginning, is this price competition. We
Yeah.
kind of race to the bottom because you see the competitors, and with T1A is a little more difficult, if you will, because like there's other people selling similar products than I sell. Like, I mean, for the exact same car models and everything else. But like with the gift baskets, like you're trying to compete with like there's other guys that selling similar baskets and you're kind of pricing it down, and all of a sudden you're just kind of taking your margins away. I don't even look at a competitor. I haven't in probably almost 2 years. I
Interesting.
price it based on what I need to make money on.
Okay,
So
so it's
like,
interesting because I had this written down as a question, so I want to ask you this. Like, how do you approach pricing, but also just positioning? When I'm thinking about in particular, is like we're talking about marketplaces like Amazon, eBay. There's other sellers. It's not like D2C where you're a single brand store, right? So there's lots of competition. They show up on your listings. They show up in sponsored ads. Like they show up all over the place. How do you think about pricing and positioning in a marketplace where there's other people competing for that same customer?
yeah. I don't look to compete with them. I don't want to, quite honestly. So I know what I need to make, as far as profitability, because we did construct it even like ever since we actually joined your company. We did construct our pricing. We know all of the levers. We know how much our cogs are, landed average cogs, all this stuff that is, we can get into later. I just know what we need to make. And in end of the day, I'm no longer married to any parts. And there is a syndrome with people like us, with the Amazon sellers. Well, let's try this so we can make this work, right? Like, let's give this one more shot. Let's put this more, money into pushing ads or this. And I'm like, if it's not making the margin I want it gone. So
Yeah.
I have a list. It's like a 3 month scale. Like I told, like if we have lost money, and when I say losing money, I mean like I lost $35 on this part over the last 3 months. So but I'm carrying a part, right? So I got money
Yeah.
tied up on parts, I got money in storage, I got money in this, and it has not made any money. So I said, okay, why has I made no money? And then my question is like, is that price wrong? So I can price it right to make the margins that I need. If the price is not wrong, why can I make the money? Is that because I'm selling outside of Amazon? So really the cost is like the shipping. So it is not
Mm,
real.
yeah.
Or the third is like, is the advertising on this part, right? Because if it's a variation, maybe we're just pushing ads on one and then we have a family of the rest of the parts, right? So if it doesn't apply to those things, we cut it. It's like, and by cut it, I mean like, I'm not even trying to sell it out, or I said like dispose of Amazon and cut the losses. I can put the money somewhere else, you
That's
know?
interesting. And you know what? Like, look, I give you a lot of credit for that because founders do, generally speaking, have issues with like doing surgery on their SKU catalog. This comes up a lot with brands that we work with. And honestly, like, look, I understand it to some degree. There are some brands that we work with that the founders are just very emotionally invested in the product because they developed it a lot of times. And so, like, they have a lot of their heart and soul in that product. But what you're saying is really important, which is like, listen, we're in the business of making a positive return on our capital invested, right? And when I launch a product or bring a product to market, even if it's an aftermarket product like you guys, still, when you are putting dollars into that, launching that part, you're expecting it to make a return that makes it worthwhile, a worthwhile investment. And if not, you have to cut your losses and you have to reallocate that capital elsewhere. So I talk about this a lot on this podcast and my other podcast, Ecom Scaling Show, that we really need to think about our SKU catalog, or we really need to think about our inventory position and how much stock we have at a SKU level. We need to think about it as a portfolio of investments, because that's really what it is. It's actually no different than a real estate investor that has a portfolio of, say, 25 properties. They had some thesis on the front end that they were going to put X amount of capital into each one of those and get Y return. And if you're not getting it, you have to ask yourself if you should cut your losses and reallocate the capital elsewhere to get the return that you need to get.
Yeah, in the end of the day, and that's how I see it. Is like I'm here to make money. So like I used to do that, like is because it's very natural for founders to be like, oh, we can figure out. Let's keep trying. I was like, but it got to the point that I realized that I can just say, no, I want to. do this product that I can make more money. So like even now, like we are getting even more aggressive in the cutting to the point that if it's like single digits profit margin, we are still cutting it. So like if it's like making 6 or 7 or 10%, we're like, do we really want to keep this? Because I can allocate this money to something that's at 33%, right?
For
Or a
sure. Well, I
32%
mean,
margin.
if you think about it, man, business in general, doesn't matter whether you're in e-com or you're in some other business. Business is all about allocating capital to make a return, right? You're either allocating actual like monetary capital, like actual cash, or you're allocating human capital, sweat equity, time, right? Or you're allocating like physical capital, like machinery and buildings and things of that nature. But the bottom line is like business takes those different forms of capital and brings it into a system that allows that capital to generate more than it would generate outside of that system, and the system being the business, right? And so I do say I've been trying to actually talk about this a lot more to brands and in my content, which is like, guys, business is a money game. I don't care what vertical you're in. It's a money game. So you have to have a money person on your team. And
Yeah. And
like if you don't have a money person on your team, you're going to be in trouble at some point because the game you're playing is a money game.
well, it is funny, like, and again, I don't want to kind of jump into the CFO thing, but like, I had this conversation more often than none with other founders. And I realized that they're running those businesses in spreadsheets and Google Sheets. And I was like, you really need to do this. And I talked to somebody just in Vegas a couple weeks ago for Inspire, and they're doing like 20 plus mil and they don't have a CFO. They're running a spreadsheets, and I'm like, dude, like what? Why? And then I explained just like one facet, right? That you're
Yeah.
like from your team that we did an analysis. I think this is about a year ago on our inventory, and we were carrying 272 days worth of inventory in average. And that's kind of what prompted me to start kind of like getting more aggressive. We're down to about 170-ish days now. So we cut 100 days worth of inventories. But the impact on the cash, that lever was like, whenever he told me that number, it was what I was like, boom. I was like, we got
Yeah,
to get
dude,
rid
I
of
mean
this.
100 days of inventory is a lot of cash flow to get locked up, you know? Like I mean to go from 270 to 170, that 100-day differential is massive.
Yeah, so, like, that's kind of what the lever like, but again, not knowing the numbers, you wouldn't know, right? It's like
Yeah.
once, like so I can't pull the lever if I didn't know. Like, in my mind, it's like, "Oh, we're carrying, it's profitable," but it's just sitting there, and you're selling, like, 5 units or 10 units. Yeah, it's profitable, but at what cost, right? That money is tied up. I have to continue to order a slow-selling product that is making small margin versus, like, investing in, something that is a higher profit margin and faster movers, right? So it's sort of like we guides our decisions. Like I'm sitting this next week and a half with my purchasing person. Is like we're gonna go over there's hundreds of SKUs that we want to order. And we're going to say, no, like, okay, which ones had the highest margins, which ones had the highest probability of selling, because in the past was like, we would buy like this segment of products, right? So I'll buy like, okay, we're going to add 50. But if I add one part for this car, I used to get like, the four others that kind of complement that part.
Yeah.
Well, this one may be a good seller. This one may be as slow, and this other two may not be as good. But because I say, if this person buy this, he may want the whole family. I kind of dish that, that approach. Is kind of like I want to get the part that's going to sell.
For
You
sure,
know,
dude. There is a trap. There is a trap in that for sure, man. Like, and the other thing is, if you have all these connections or you're forecasting that there's this connection, right? If you're wrong and those linkages break in reality, then you're just left with this crazy inventory position issue. So you guys are playing. So this is something new. I haven't like formally, launched this quote, so to speak, from like a marketing messaging standpoint, but I've been working on it. It's this signature way that Free to Grow. We already do this. I just haven't put like a name or a structure to it. We help brands figure out what marketing game they're playing because we're not all playing the same game. There's the high LTV game like supplements and cosmetics. There's the durable good, like new customer dominant game that's like beauty devices and electronics and things. And then there's the high SKU count game. That's the game you guys are playing, right? And the high SKU count game, generally speaking, you actually can have a decent amount of lifetime value. People will repurchase from you, but it doesn't happen in a short period of time. They purchase from you over like 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, they repeat purchase from you, right? And they usually repeat purchase from you as your SKU catalog grows and you launch new products. So what is the driver of growth? The driver of growth is launching new products, but what is potentially the killer of growth? Launching too many new products because it kills all of your cash flow. And so our job as CFOs is to identify that you're playing that game and help think through how to balance the fact that like, yeah, we could protect cash flow. We could protect cash flow by just stopping launching any new SKUs. But because of the game you're playing, that also would kill growth. And we can't do that. So we got to figure out how to balance them. So what was the moment, or like, what was the moment when you realized that it was time to seriously consider bringing Free to Grow CFO on to provide, because you already had bookkeeping in place, but this is like true CFO financial strategy. When was the moment when you realized that it was time for that?
It was funny because it was twofold, right? Like, I think when I first contacted you, I was too early. I wanted to do it, but I was too early, right? We developed a relationship and we kept in touch over I think it was a whole year
Yeah, I think it might
that
have been.
that you would just say, you text me, he's like, yeah, I'm praying for you today. Is anything specific? And then you call, just check on me, how the family, how the kids. So we had this whole relationship. And then I was still scaling, right? So I was growing so rapidly. Like, I mean, I still am. Like, I mean, I think we grew 100% year over year for the past 3 years. And then I had made this massive investment in the company, say we're going to launch, like, I think 350 SKUs or so. It was something like stupid, for the time. It's kind of like one of those things that I'm seeing the mountain peaks, but I'm not seeing the valleys,
For
sort of
sure.
thing.
Yeah.
So like, so I had all this stuff and I'm scaling. What I did not have the foresight of seeing is like the bill is going to come due, right? So I got the money for the order. I paid for the order. I got the products. I didn't have the money for the second and third order
For sure.
because at that time, like I said, I had 272 days worth of inventory. So as we were ordering now with our parts, the way that works is like, you start slowly, like you're doing 10, 15, but then you're ordering 6 months. And then all of a sudden those same 15 goes to 40. And now you
Yeah.
have your order goes like, oh, I don't need only 100. I need 1,000 parts.
Totally.
So like then the subsequent orders were so high that I was getting into this like massive cash flow issue that I did not have the foresight of seeing, right? I'm just like, hey, I'm like running high, we're growing, numbers are great, profitability is great, but I'm sitting on this inventory and I had to buy more in order to keep
Yeah.
growing. And then so I had that conversation with you. I was like, hey, I think it's time, because I can't forecast, I don't have visibility. Like, I don't know what's happening and I don't know where my cash is going. Right. Cause the numbers are right. Like, my COGS are right. My shipping is right. My tariffs I got everything, but where's my cash?
For sure. And you're profitable, right? And the P&L says you're
Yeah.
making money,
Yeah.
right?
But I don't know where the cash was going. And then we realized, I mean, it's going to parts. I had an idea, but I couldn't verbalize it and I could not put it on paper.
I want to ask you this because sometimes when I talk to brands who are interested in working with us, I've actually personally been trying to figure out like how to describe our financial model in a way that a founder cares about. Not in a like the way I talk to one of our CFOs about our financial model. Because I do think there are some founders who are like, do I need a financial model? I get this a lot. I don't think I really need one. I wouldn't use it anyways. Like if just my CFO would use it. When you first got your financial model built by Free to Grow, and now like you've been with us, I actually haven't even looked up how long we've been together, but like after all these months of working
It's been
together and you
over a
have the
year. Yeah.
financial model every single month, right? And you have the ability to see forward, right? Not just backward, which is like, what has that done for you personally and your ability to run the business?
It's funny because like our financial model I feel like is so dialed down right now that like we just did last month, like we're going to do next week, we do February, right? Because I ran behind, but like was within like less than a percentage off, like for forecasting what we're going to hit in February. The numbers are so close. It's like, yeah, you're with like 0.03 in marketing. No, you're with 0.5 in operating costs. Like, so it's been so dialed down that like, we really know that the model is working, but what we are doing because we want to scale, like I know that, hey, I can grow at this point, and if I pull this lever, like we are talking about now terms, right? That's is a lever that we're trying to pull. So like I want to go from 90 to possibly 6 months worth of terms from 3 months. But we say, okay, if we do this, we can grow at this rate. So we're talking about different things that makes a difference to the business. So I know that if I keep running at the rate I'm running, I'm gonna run out of cash, in April of 2027, right?
Mhm.
I would never be able to tell this, right? So as a founder, those are very powerful. Like I think was early on within the first 2 months is the aha moment. And I think that's a good case that I make when I'm telling people about CFOs, like, hey, listen, I knew that if I cut down my inventory from 10 months to 7 months, it would be like $500 to $600,000 freed up in cash flow. Right. I knew there was a second lever that I think that if we change, it'll be another like 450,000. If we change it from a 3PL and like, so it was just like, I mean, those numbers were adding pretty fast. Like, I mean, we're talking about making a few changes and we're talking about like $1 million of cash flow for being freed up. Right.
Yeah, which is like going back to our discussion about capital allocation, right?
Yeah.
Now, where do you now you have $1 million more to allocate to where you see the best use of that cash to go, right?
Exactly. And so if you're trying to grow and then you realize if you change a few things or you know what levers to pull. And that's what like I just had this discussion with somebody that was like saying, I don't know if I'm using this service right, right? I was like, well, have you tried this lever? Have you asked about this? Like everything, I was like, no, I didn't know to ask. I was like, well, you need to put your person to work. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
because like, I'm asking all kinds of different questions to my CFO, right? So, but so I think that sometimes your customer, your client, or people there are founders, they just don't even know that they need it because they don't know what questions to ask. So, and what is the most important, like the people are asking, like they want to grow and they want to be profitable. So I think if you can say, hey, you got to think in these levers and so we can actually think through, but like it's hard because it's a lot of those founders are so attached and they're so scared of giving pieces of the puzzle to somebody else that they hinder their own growth. And then until they realize that like, hey, I don't know how else to grow this thing, and I don't know what the next step is, right? So I told everybody that I talk about the CFO services, that was probably the best dollars that I spend is this. Because if I don't have the model, I'm running blind, right? When I was doing it myself, my books were like 2 or 3 months behind,
Mhm.
so I was running blind, like completely blind without sound mute. Like it was just everything, right? Like I'm just kind of winging it because by the time I got the information, by the time I got my books done, I'm already 3 months ahead. Like,
Yeah,
so
yeah. All that stuff has become irrelevant and you've bought that much more inventory, you're growing that much
it-
more, like
so
all that is in the rear view mirror.
and I'm getting to the point now that we're going to enter another massive growth phase. I know exactly what I can do. I know at what rate I can grow. I know exactly the number of SKUs I can add because we've done it, in the past. So we know what the allocation of SKUs is in order to grow at a certain pace. Like, I mean, we are getting really granular and it's only going to get more because we are diversifying now to D2C and eBay and Walmart. So, and those channels are also growing. So now we're going to say, okay, we're going to have to kind of get into a more mixed modeling to see where the ads are being spent and how it's affecting each of the channels,
For sure.
because it just is a completely different level that I wasn't even thinking about a year ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
For
So
sure.
I can't do this without a team like yours. It doesn't make it like I couldn't.
Honestly, man, you telling that story actually kind of gives me goosebumps because I just think about honestly, like you probably know this at this point, working with us for the last year or so. We're not out there making any claims that we do something that we don't actually do with our service. We're just out there. We just have a group of people who are just trying to do good work, right? And who are trying to help. We all, for whatever reason, have this call it a passion or a sickness for e-commerce, right? And we're just trying to help people run businesses better. And the story of working with you guys has been exactly why we do this every single day and so much fun. And we're excited about the future. I do want to ask you something unrelated, which is Vander Studio, which we had your business partner, Alex Kiru, on a few weeks ago on the podcast. I talked to him about it. What are you guys doing over there at Vander Studio for brands on Amazon?
Yeah, that's been a fun project that Alex and I kind of venture in the side because we are, I think both laugh, but we're like, we're idiots and we say like, we don't need sleep, right? Like, so like, let's do it. But we love what we do. We love e-commerce. It is a hate love relationship,
Yeah, exactly.
and we
That's
are
why I
good
said,
at it.
is it a
Uh,
passion or is it a sickness?
yeah. But there's a need. I mean, there's a lot of brands that don't know Amazon. So it's kind of boutique. We try to keep it very small. We're very selective of who we bring in. And if we can help you, great. If we can't help you, we'll tell you. It's like, hey man, like I don't think we're a good fit. We really can't help you. We don't want to, like, we're not just taking people in just because, but really we're full management, right? Like, so we are doing pretty much A through Z on Amazon. So we are doing all the images, all the SEO, all the management, all like, some cases of forecasting, if they don't have forecasting for the Amazon side, creating the shipments. I mean, really, you'd be completely hands off for anybody. And we really do try, for the most part, deal with more D2C brands that just kind of like don't do Amazon, or they see Amazon as like this completely different animal, which it is in essence a little bit different than the world of D2C, right? But it is not the enemy. The funny thing is, like, we talk to these people and they're doing crazy numbers. They're amazing what they do with D2C. And they either have tried Amazon and failed miserably, or they're completely scared of it because they think it's going to cannibalize their D2C brand or the D2C customer, but they don't understand that they're completely different customers. If they have not bought in your D2C, they aren't gonna buy it. They're gonna buy it on Amazon, right? Like, so if they bought on Amazon, they're not your D2C customer. Because really what's happening for the most part that we've seen it happen is like customer goes to Facebook and they see your ad and they like it and they go to Amazon, they search it, it's not on Amazon, they won't buy it. They won't go back to your brand and buy it. But if they see on Amazon, they trust, they know they can get it in 2 days, they do whatever, they'll buy it. So we have seen quite the opposite. It does not cannibalize the D2C. It actually grows and it grows rapidly, in Amazon. But it's still different, it's a completely different animal. The way the customer service Amazon and the support and performance team works they're a nightmare to D2C people because they don't know how to handle it.
If you screwed up, your listing gets, banned or you
Delisted
lose momentum.
and
It really,
ranked. Yeah, it's they don't understand the ranking system. They don't understand the organic. It's all things that we have grown to be very good at. And Alex has a very unique set of skills. And he was in a podcast, and I don't know if Alex told you, but he exit 4 times.
he did.
The guy.
Alex is the best. Alex cracks me up because when he's talking, he's talking as if like I'm nothing special. I don't know anything. But then you get him going, and you're like, this guy knows exactly what he's talking about. But
Yeah,
yeah, no, but I mean, it's interesting. I want to call it one thing, which is that we see that from the CFO perspective, I think I see the same thing, and is what you just mentioned. Alex mentioned it when he was on the podcast. Like it is not. There may be a little bit of overlap, but it is truly accretive. It's not a big cannibalization. And furthermore, if you can figure out how to run Amazon properly, which is why bringing in guys like you on Vander Studio, like bringing guys like you and Alex in is key. If you know how to operate on Amazon, it can be a massive tailwind of growth to complement your D2C store. It's the first place that I recommend brands look when they're looking to expand from their Shopify stores. Look at Amazon next. But you
yeah,
do need to know how to run Amazon properly, especially because of how tightly woven together customer support and operational, you know, efficiency is to the momentum of your listing and your ranking and all that kind
yeah.
of stuff. You can't screw
It,
that
it,
up.
and the biggest issue we see too is they put such little faith or such little, they feel like it's like this little brother sort of thing, and they don't pay
Yeah,
any attention, so they don't send inventory, they stock out, like, and it just hurts them. But like the profitability is so much higher because the spillover, right? Like you're doing so good in your D2C, and the spillover to Amazon is real. And again, those buyers are buyers, Amazon buyers. If they come into Amazon, maybe a small percentage will go back and buy on your website. But the reality is, if like they don't find Amazon, you may have lost this. So it's like you're catching all those customers that wouldn't have bought your product anyways. We have a customer that we just brought in, I think 5 months ago, and we put their product on, and they sold out within a week and a half. And we had told them like, hey, we need this much inventory. It says we can't send that much. It was like we're gonna need it. We're gonna stock out. It says, okay, I don't like, they didn't believe it. So they said it was a week and a half. And then I was like, when can you send more? And it was like a month. So we're like out of stock for like a month. And
Yeah.
then we send more, and then it's stocked out another 2 weeks. And then now they're like, oh, I think in 2026 we're gonna really pay attention to Amazon. I was like, yeah, you think? So now they're really really going full go at Amazon, which is kind of fun to see, but their numbers are so much more profitable. They're thinking AOV and everything is not as good because they're saying that customer on their website buys one or two or three products, Amazon is only one. And I was like, well, yeah, but your acquisition cost is crazy, on
Yeah.
there. I'm at 44% margin on Amazon because you're a spillover with very little ads and so it's just a different, it just complements it so well.
That's how I can tell it works on the CFO side is I can't do perfect attribution, but when I see that the blended marketing efficiency ratio when you combine Shopify and Amazon goes up and I see contribution margin dollars combined goes up, that I can't tell you exactly how much is coming from where, but I can tell you that
Is
it's
working.
adding
Yeah.
more profit to the bottom line and it's ultimately making the marketing spend more efficient. I want to ask you about one final thing before we close out here, which is when you were in college, you were getting a degree in biblical studies. You and I are both Christians, followers of Jesus. We both have 3 kids. I will be the first person to say that the craziest thing I ever decided to do was be a follower of Jesus, an entrepreneur, and a father of 3 kids all at the same time. I had no idea what I was getting myself into by deciding to do all 3 of those things. How do you do it, man? Do you have any advice for anyone else, anyone listening who may be in a similar position to you?
I don't know how I do it. The same way you don't either. I can say that I guess I'm foolish in some aspects. I'm kind of fearless. I'm so and I just kind of I jump 2 feet first, and then I will try to figure out. But it is hard. The 3 kids, like I start with the kids, right? They are by far the greatest gift. They're awesome. They're fun, and they're also hard.
Yeah.
Like in every phase is hard. I think our kids in similar ages, but I got an 8 going on 9, a 6-year-old going on 7, and a 3-year-old. And every phase is like, oh, this is awesome. You can do this or you figure this out. And then you're dealing with other problems. The problems just gets different. And you're like, oh my word, oh, why? Why would you do this? And balancing faith and trying to parent it well, it's hard because the balance is skewed, right? Like I don't have a nine
Yeah.
to five job,
Yep.
right? So when I decided to go full go in business, the schedule's off is out the window. Like I work when I work, and things have to get done. And if things break, I'm in the computer. And my biggest problem is like this, right? Like it
Dude,
never turns off,
I know
right?
I
So
have the
like
biggest problem with that,
my
man.
emails are on, so it is very hard. So a couple things that we do, and I'm not perfect on this at all. You can ask my wife, and she'll be the first one to tell you. It's like no, like we try to have dinner as a family, because with the job that I have the flexibility, right? So we try to have family dinners together every day. So like we sit and we chat, and I try not to look at the phone. I'm not very good at it. So we try to do that. We make church a priority. So like we try very hard to never miss going to church because that's our family, time is our church family time, and the fellowship is important to us. We try to host other people from church in our house. So we haven't done much in lately because life has been chaotic, but we just got this new house, and then we're putting a pool in the house, and we're gonna go back to hosting once or twice, per month because again, I think is spending time with the body of Christ is important. And then I have a small group that I meet with every Wednesday morning, like 7 a.m. And it's 4 of us, and then we try to keep each other accountable to reading, prayer, and memorization. So again, I'm far from perfect. I fail all the time. I don't read as often as I should. I don't follow, but it's an imperfect walk, and that's kind of what it is. And
That's why we need Jesus, brother.
yeah, so
I'm convinced that God gave me all of this, like made me jump into all this stuff to increase my faith. I'm convinced because I'm like, I do not have this all figured out. I am not
no,
I am not in control of all of this. In fact, the more that I get involved in, I don't know, man, this is probably a whole nother episode. But like, I'm becoming more and more convinced because it says in Genesis that God created man in his image, right? And if you think about who is the God of the Bible, one of the things that he very clearly is what? A God of creation. So if we're made in his image, we're made to be creators. And guys like me and you, we have found our way into creation, being an image bearer of God. We found our way into doing that through entrepreneurship. And but the Bible also says that although we were made in God's image, we're also cursed by sin. And so sin mars the very things that we're trying to do to be like God, right? And I just, the more and more that we create children by having kids, we create businesses by being entrepreneurs, and the more and more I create, the more and more I'm like, I am not in control, and I very clearly need Jesus, and I'm a total mess, and I don't know how to do any of this stuff, but somehow through God's grace,
Yeah.
it bears fruit, you know?
That's the only way. And then the worst like thing is like when you see your kids do things that you're like, that's totally me, right? Like you're
Yeah.
like it was wrong, and you see you like because they're just copying you. They're watching you so closely, and it is hard, but like it is such a joyful thing to have those kids, and we're just hopefully creating little God followers here, and we're just trying to create good human beings that are gonna follow Christ in the future, and we just keep reminding ourselves of that. And then the one thing though for parenting, and I'm sure you do the same, is like we are very quick to, if I'm wrong, I tell them, like I say, hey,
Yeah.
daddy was wrong,
It's the only thing you can
because
do.
I felt all the time,
Yeah.
and I think it's hard. I think for a lot of parents, this is very hard because like you just don't apologize to your kid, right? Like it's like, hey, my kid, man, I do that almost daily. It was like, hey, daddy was wrong. I'm sorry. Can you forgive me? Like I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have, yelled at you, or I should like whatever. Like
Yep.
it's just like,
Totally.
but it is a completely humbling thing, but it goes a long way, you
It
know?
does. Well, and I
Yeah.
think that the real, at the end of the day, we're all in the same boat, that we all struggle with the same things, sin, being humans cursed by sin. And so the best thing we can do is be real about it. Look, man, this was a awesome conversation. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you as a friend, as a client of Free to Grow CFO. It's been great working with you so far. We look forward to helping you take the brand to new heights in 2026 and beyond. But before we end here, where can people find more information about Vander Studio and about T1?
T1A, you can go to our website at t1aauto.com. Vendor Studio, their website should hopefully be live here within the next week, because we are been completely word of mouth. Like we don't advertise, we don't know anything. Is just all recommendations. But we are putting the website together. Will be vendorstudio.com. Should be live here hopefully within the next couple of weeks. But you can just email us at hello@vendorstudio.com. Vendor VANDOR studio, no s.com. But with the website will be ready. And like I said, we're a boutique. We're just trying to help people do well in Amazon. We're very good, at that niche, so we figure we can help people there. So
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again for coming on, and look forward to our next chat. I might have to have you come back and talk to me a little bit more about Vander Studios as you guys get that going. But thanks again for
yeah.
coming on, man, and chat with you soon.
All right, thank you.
Don't forget, if you like today's episode, please hit the subscribe button and leave us a review. It helps us reach more people like you. Also, if you want daily tips on scaling a profitable D2C brand, follow me, John Blair, on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in learning more about how Free to Grow CFO can help your brand increase profit and cash flow as you scale, check us out at freetogrowcfo.com.